mainstay that my name's associated with, which will continue, and it played a role, I think, in my final decision, because I do feel that every person that holds these kinds of positions, they have things that people associate them with. And if you talk about me, annexation is something that is sort of the label that for my whole 37 years in public service, even as a councilman, I was very involved in annexation. I think it's a very important economic development tool. And I'm wondering, talking to a lot of people during this several month period of time, and there were a lot of issues that people talked about. Is, you know, what's going to happen if you're not there and this kind of situation occurs? What's going to happen with aggressive annexation and aggressive development? And that all played a role in the decision that I am going to seek the Democratic nomination in May of 2009.
Where two major subdivisions come together for Starr County, and that's the reason why we are coming together, for Greater Canton, Greater Jackson, Greater North Canton, that we can come together, assist the county in developing undeveloped land, helping the county to do what is the most difficult thing in the world in governing, and that is cultivate businesses, cultivating tax dollars.
I'll be happy to take that question first. We have not taken a look at the annexation issue in any committee. That has not been done. I have not drafted any legislation on that. The abuse of the annexation only became readily apparent with the most recent annexation attempt, and actually was completed because statute allowed it in Massillon, where they took over R.G. Drake. And that clearly seemed to fly in the face of what good policy would be, but in effect was legal based on the way the statutes were written. I think it's an appropriate topic for us to look at, understanding, of course, that summer recess is on, committees are not meeting, which is a great time for us to do some research and homework in hopes that we can get a bill introduced and some work done on it this General Assembly. But being perfectly candid, saying that you're going to pass a bill between now and December would be being dishonest with you because of the election and other issues that are going to keep committees from meeting and from votes from happening. It's important to be realistic about what we can change.
Okay, and I have an opinion about state legislators in that point too, but I won't make it. Let's. Well,
can I just add one thing?
Quickly.
Annexation law is another thing that
This is Todd
Bosley been grossly overlooked in the 50th district and not addressed, and it should have been addressed and dealt with a long time ago.
Fundamentally, I disagree with every part of this type of annexation where it runs a track for 2.4 miles and it's 60 feet wide. We're annexing 1 acre of ground. Even if the case were to be made that we need to do that, then the part above it, there is no explanation for the rest of the railroad track to be annexed, in my opinion. But with that said, I understand the difference between an expedited annexation and a regular annexation when we have the hearing. So I will be voting for this.
That the reason that you and Commissioner Meeks voted for denying the annexation of Poets Glen was because you're still back in township life and you haven't realized, since you've transitioned to being county commissioner, that you represent all of Stark County, including the incorporated areas.
Well, I have a lot of respect for the mayor. I disagree with the mayor completely. I have voted for and against different annexations based on how I weighed those out personally and whether they made sense to our community. Keeping in mind that every annexation we approve redraws a district line that makes it harder for emergency services to know where to go, for a fire truck to get to a fire, an ambulance to get to an emergency. I weigh all of that in the annexations that I'm allowed to. Now, in this particular case, there's a property owner who lives in front of the people or the property that was to be annexed. And when that homeowner is forced to come into the city when he does not want to come into the city, I believe that's the discretion that Ohio Revised Code gives a Board of Commissioners. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to hear the annexation at all. It would just be paperwork and it would be over. So the reason I voted against that particular annexation had nothing to do with whether I lived in a township or represented a township, but it had everything to do with the fact that a property owner who clearly testified at a hearing and said they did not want to be part of an annexation. I don't believe Ohio Revised Code provides for them to have to be part of that annexation, and it doesn't force me, because I live in a township or come from a township, to approve that annexation. So I would call the mayor's argument a little bit.
I could say to this is that I do represent, and I understand that I represent all of Stark County. My township background has helped me prepare for this position. One thing that I do in my decision making, I look at what is fair and equal for everyone. And my decision making took place that evening, and at the time I did not believe that it was fair and for the betterment of the territory. That is why it had nothing to do with my township background. And for it to be even hinted about that we aren't, because we come from townships, that we're anti-annexation is totally false.
And yes, those races are very much of a concern to us because they vote on issues that affect my constituents, my city, and the residents that live here. And you do have Janet Creighton, who's a Republican, but she did run the largest city in Stark County and did a good job. And so is she going to take that philosophy with her and be pro-city all the time? No, she shouldn't, and neither should any of the present commissioners. They should not take a pro-township or pro-city approach to really anything because they represent the entire county. And if Martin, if you're talking about annexation, all I ask them to do is look at the law. And my only problem with Mr. Bosley, and he's a fine person, and I certainly get along with him, was when your legal counsel tells you to vote for a particular annexation because legally the city followed all the procedures appropriately, then I think you should vote for it. And when you don't vote for it, then that's either you're either being politically expedient, or you're trying to be political or show your personal feelings that you're against annexation. Being a county commissioner, you know you're going to deal with annexation, but you shouldn't be against annexation because of your township person. You should be against annexation if the annexing municipality didn't follow the proper procedures. That was my only problem with that. Especially when your legal counsel is telling you you should vote that way. On the Poets Glen annexation, legal counsel saying the city followed everything. Look at the record, followed everything appropriately. Yet it lost a 2-1. Dr. Ferguson was the only one that followed the advice of his legal counsel. I have a concern.
Take it from what you've just said about how county commissioners have been voting on these issues, and specifically in reference to Poet Glens, that you will weigh in for Janet Creighton and her race against Steve Meeks?
No, I think you're not going to get that political bombshell. So I don't think that's going to happen. I'm a Democrat. I shall remain a Democrat. I don't think you're going to see me publicly supporting any Republicans. That being said, I want efficiency in government at all levels, and I think that we need to look at what the laws are. If you're going to be a county commissioner, then you need to look at what's best. That's why, if you're talking about annexation, that's why the state legislature allowed some discretion with certain types of annexation. But in the expedited form, there is no discretion by the commissioners. If the city follows, the annexing municipality follows, I believe there's eight points, the annexation shall, it's not maybe, it's shall be granted. But when you vote against that, that goes against, you're voting against the law. To me, I have a problem with that. That's all I'm saying. You know, when you take a position, you take an oath of office for a certain position, then you need to look, and whatever advice your legal counsel gives you, you need to adhere to that. You may not agree with it, but you still should do as they say, because that's why you have a checks and balances. What's the legal counsel supposed to do? They are instructed to look at all legislation, all issues, legal issues involving that government, that form of government, whether it be city, township, or in this case, county. And when they make a recommendation, it's based on case law. It's based on facts. So you have to do what you have to do. I just think that the grandstanding doesn't work in this day and age, and it doesn't help anybody, because now we have to spin our wheels and file appeals and spend money, and that takes time. But I think we will prevail in Poets Glen, but you know, we'll wait and see what happens. I just hope that in the future there will be future expedited annexations coming down the road here that they're going to have to consider. And if they didn't want to take and consider annexations, then they shouldn't be a commissioner.